Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche, and this is Bridge City News. Here's a look at some of the stories we have lined up for you tonight. The presidents of the United States and Russia meet in Alaska to find a solution to end the war in Ukraine. Plus, Air Canada and its flight attendants take their labor dispute down to the wire. And Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and her Alberta Next panel get an earful from an angry crowd in Edmonton.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks for joining us. The world is watching as U.S. President Donald Trump meets with Russian President Vladimir Putin today in Alaska. At issue, the war in Ukraine and finding a way to end it. Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 with tens of thousands of soldiers killed on both sides. Ukrainians gathered in Kyiv today to make their feelings known. They say they want Trump and Putin to focus on the release of prisoners and not territorial issues.
Я не розумію, як можуть вирішувати щось за наші території, коли немає нас. Тобто для мене це теж якийсь абсурд. Наші території суверенні віддають, обмінюють на якийсь мир. Це неправильно, я цьому не дуже вірю і маю сумніви, що і сподіваюся, принаймні, що наш президент на це погодиться.
І ми надіємося, що ця зустріч з представниками з обох сторін дасть нам можливість повернути наших усіх рідних додому, які би не були. Хто живі, хто мертвий. Головне додому всіх повернути, всіх, тому що їх чекають вдома.
The Kremlin says the meeting between Trump and Putin could last as long as 7 hours. It's the final day before a potential work stoppage could ground all Air Canada and Air Canada Rouge flights. Air Canada has already started canceling flights as it prepares for the work stoppage, with 500 cancellations expected today. Over 10,000 flight attendants could walk off the job as shortly after 1 a.m. Eastern if the 11th hour deal is not reached. At issue, wages.
Today, a junior Air Canada flight attendant working full-time will earn just $1,952 a month pre-tax. So again, $1,952 pre-tax per month. For comparison, someone working full-time at federal minimum wage will earn $2,840. We believe our flight attendants deserve a wage they can live with. I do think that this is something we can settle at the bargaining table, but it takes two parties to entertain that. Unfortunately, again, Air Canada hasn't come back to discuss wages. They seem to feel that our flight attendants are best suited with an 8% wage increase that will still keep them at the poverty level.
The negotiation started with CUPE demanding increases in compensation of more than 100%. Our latest offer included an increase of 38% in total compensation, including benefits and pensions over 4 years. And most importantly, it included an offer for ground pay, an offer that has been in our offers for months. We never left the table. We are engaged throughout the entire process. We have made offers and responded to every offer CUPE has made, including the last one. We are still available to bargain at any time on the condition that the negotiation has substance.
CUPE says it's eager to avoid a work stoppage by sitting down to negotiate, while the airline has requested the federal government step in. On Thursday in Saskatchewan, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre repeated his call for the federal government to end its electric vehicle mandates. The mandates require that hybrids and EVs make up 20% of sales beginning next year and 100% of sales by 2035. Poilievre calls the mandates a complete and utter disaster. Alberta Environment Minister Rebecca Scholes is echoing those concerns. In a statement, Scholes says the mandates aren't realistic or possible. In the last year alone, Albertans purchased over 223,000 new vehicles, while fewer than 25,000 EVs were produced in Canada. Scholes says Albertans could purchase every single EV produced in this country, and we still would not be close to meeting what she calls this unrealistic plan. Meantime, a new Leger poll just released shows 71% of Canadians also want the EV mandate rolled back due to high costs and implementation concerns. And the independent policy think tank, the MEI, says its research backs that up.
StatsCan released the data on purchasing, vehicle purchases in June 2025. And so we compared last year's Q2, the second quarter of the year, to this year's second quarter. And what we saw was that electric vehicle purchases are down about 37% year over year. So this is obviously a signal that Canadians are not adopting electric vehicles in any meaningful way, and certainly not enough to reach the government's own targets. We can't forget that Ottawa has pledged $30 billion to electric vehicle manufacturers, on top of the other billions of dollars that the Quebec and Ontario governments have pledged. So this is a significant bet the government has made, and it seems not to have paid off. And we also see them kind of trying to shield this this bet, because it is a gamble. You know, governments are notoriously bad at picking winners and losers in the market. They've also applied Chinese EVs with 100% tariffs, also as a way to shield their investments. So there's definitely some of that going on.
The federal Conservatives say when Parliament resumes sitting in the fall, they plan to introduce motions, petitions, and other pressure campaigns to force the Liberals to repeal the policy. The Alberta Next panel held another town hall meeting last night in Edmonton, and it was at times a heated affair. The Premier and members of the panel are traveling around the province brainstorming possible future referendum questions. A crowd of about 750 gathered for the event, and when the microphones were open for questions, participants did not hold back.
Alberta doesn't really want you doing this right now. We don't want this. We're worried about health, we're worried about education, and we're worried about poverty. Too many of our neighbors are living under a tarp to be talking about transfers. We're simply not concerned.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
The email supplying this address says we can speak only on topics that advise on how Alberta can strengthen its sovereignty within a united Canada.
You bet.
Yeah. Alberta.ca says your Sovereignty Act will not allow Alberta to separate from Canada. Now, I think it's a sovereignty or a united Canada. So, Danielle Smith, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? And will you sign this petition?
Thank you.
Well, my very first bill was Bill 1, which was Alberta sovereignty within a united Canada. It was the very first action that I took when I became Premier. And I can tell you that one of the things I have to do when I travel internationally, because I am also Minister of International and Intergovernmental Relations, is to let people know that we have one of the most decentralized federations in the entire world. So when I go to Mexico and speak with Pemex, and they want to know about fracking, and they want to know about their gas development, they want to know about pipelines, they want to know about natural gas, electricity, they shouldn't be going to Ottawa. They should be coming to Edmonton and Calgary to find out how it is we do it and how we can collaborate. And that's how our founders created our country, so that each of us have areas of jurisdiction that we are exclusively responsible for.
At times, last night's meeting devolved into anger, F-bombs, and challenges to Smith's United Conservative government that weren't on the agenda. The Alberta Next panel is set to host events in Fort McMurray and Lloydminster in 2 weeks. Lethbridge police have wrapped up their investigation of a fatal motorcycle crash and say no charges will be laid. Just before 5 o'clock on July 8th, police and EMS responded to a report of a collision involving a motorcycle and a truck at the intersection of 30th Street North and Crow's Nest Trail. The operator of the motorcycle was seriously injured and transported to Chinook Regional Hospital by EMS, where he was pronounced dead. Police say their investigation determined the westbound motorcycle ran ran a red light and collided with a truck. Witnesses told police the motorcycle operator engaged in a dangerous maneuver to overtake another vehicle before proceeding through the intersection. Over the past 2 years in Lethbridge, there have been 7 fatal collisions, 4 of those involving motorcycles. Alberta Open Farm Days is this weekend. It's a collaborative, province-wide 2-day event that gives Albertans an opportunity to experience the farm and understand where their food comes from. However, in this next story, BCN's Naveen Day says there's a lot more to Southern Alberta farming than just fruits and vegetables.
While Southern Alberta is famous for being Canada's produce basket, there's much more to see, eat, drink, and smell. And over the weekend, Alberta Open Farm Days will showcase some of these in a fun, engaging, and meaningful manner to participants of all ages. First up for the adults, a little gem of a winery is open for business. Their product is made from Haskap berries rather than the usual grapes.
Haskaps are very high in antioxidants, very high in anti-inflammatory properties, and we thought making a wine with this berry would be a natural progression. Our wine is not typical fruit wine, it's very dry. We have one that's done in stainless steel, one that's done in oak, so one is very light and bright and one is very full-bodied. We want to bring people here to recognize that farming can be a little different in Alberta, and we can do wine in Alberta versus growing a typical crop. The Haskap berries are very hardy. They're able to survive the Alberta winters. We want to show people how we make wine. You don't have to go to the Okanagan to get wine. You can come to Southern Alberta and get wine.
And while life is short, there's always time to stop and smell the flowers, and you'll be able to do just that just outside of Coaldale at the Lilac Row. Charlene Collins shares more about this family-owned business.
The Lilac Row is a third-generation family farm, and as part of our farm, we have a flower farm where we do agritourism events, we do U-Picks, we do wedding services, and also all kinds of other florals. We were actually approached by Open Farm Days as part of kind of a province-wide initiative to try and get more farms involved in the project. And once we heard about it, we really, their message just really resonated with us, because we think it's so important to be able to connect people with agriculture in a meaningful, approachable way.
There are many other farms to choose from, and you can see the full list of participating farms at albertaopenfarmdays.ca. But if you plan on visiting Little Gem Winery or the Lilac Row, here's what you can expect to experience.
We are going to be here from 10 till 4, and during that period we'll be doing tours every hour on the hour. So we will take you through our gardens and our fields, so you can kind of get to see everything that we're growing and how we're growing it. And then we will have bouquets for purchase, we'll have activities for the kids, and people will be able to ask us their gardening questions as well. So it should just be kind of a fun, casual, well-rounded experience.
We'll be handing out some free Haskap ice cream, because we want everyone to be able to taste it, taste the Haskap berries as well. We will be doing a tour where we'll walk you through the orchard, so you can see what they look like, where they are, and how lush green they are. Also, a tour through the winery so that you can see how wine is made. Noon, 1:30, and 3 o'clock, we'll be offering those tours. And during the tour, you'll get to taste a little bit of our wine as well.
Alberta Open Farm Days runs August 16th and 17th. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Well, final preparations are underway for Whoop Up Days, set to begin August 19th. Southern Alberta's largest summer fair will kick off with a parade expected to attract about 1,200 people. Paul Kingsmith, Director of Event Development for the Lethbridge District and Exhibition, says it's all about community, spirit, family fun, and celebrating the best of Lethbridge.
This is the good time when all the preparation turns into reality, and we're just so excited as a team to get this going. In some of the early indications, we were nearly triple where we were last year. Some of the things that we're really looking forward to that are new, number one is the expansion of Whoop Up Days, going to a 6th day and having Whoop Up Wrap Up on Sunday, the 24th. Beyond that, we have some really exciting new things. The Siksika Satapi Music Showcase is something brand new that we're doing on the Tuesday night. It goes along with the expansion of the hours for the Indigenous Marketplace. We spend a lot of time working on security. It's one of the things that we start talking about right from the planning of the event, and right up until this morning we were meeting with our security teams and working through pieces. So we try to provide a really safe and fun environment. So we have our security teams will be doing bag checks, confiscating any items that might be issues at the doors. Always just leave a little bit extra time knowing that that security is going to be in place. And beyond that, we have great involvement from Lethbridge Police. We have great involvement from our security teams.
Whoop Up Wrap Up on Sunday, August 24th is a brand new Midway-focused event that allows guests to get one last chance to take in the fun of Whoop Up Days. And the Interfaith Food Bank, Lethbridge Interfaith Food Bank, will celebrate Whoop Up Days with its 18th annual pancake breakfast on Tuesday. Besides sausages, eggs, fruit, juice, and protein-packed baked beans, there will also be children's activities, games, and music.
Any of our events are to raise funds for our programs and services, as well as just raising awareness of our services, what we do, getting people into our beautiful learning garden space to learn a little bit about what we do there. The whole breakfast is by donation, so we appreciate anyone who is able to donate or bring funds for the breakfast. We're just very happy to participate with our pancake breakfast. We have it, and then at the same time we have our parade float entry in the parade, so you'll be able to see that go by, and make sure you give a good wave to everyone in the float.
We'll make sure that we do that. Attendees can also visit the Interfaith Learning Garden, where guests can take home seeds for future planting. The breakfast runs from 7 a.m. until 10 a.m. A camper in British Columbia might want to take some singing lessons. That's because Central Okanagan Search and Rescue posted online that it was involved in a search and rescue operation earlier this month. While they were training near the Kettle Valley Railway, they received a 911 call. Some hikers heard what they thought were cries for help. The crew immediately switched from training to rescue mode, activating its drone team along with 2 RCMP officers. After splitting into 2 teams and preparing to search, team members found the source. It was a man camping alone, belting out Nickelback's greatest hits. According to the team, the camper was blissfully unaware that the acoustics of the Boulder Fields had turned his tent-side concert into an accidental distress signal. The rescue team say the hikers did the right thing calling 911, and they're just happy it wasn't something more serious. Well, no kidding. And one other good news story to pass along tonight, the story of a retired auto worker, Richard Gulford, who was recently reunited with a wallet he lost 11 years ago. Take a look.
So I worked at Ford's in 2014, and we worked on a 2015 Edge. Unbeknownst to me, I had lost my wallet. I knew that I lost my wallet. We looked for it. We looked the next day for it. Nobody could find it. I let it go. I didn't hear nothing about it for 11 years. And then a month ago, a man contacted me.
So I went to set the air cleaner in it, and it wouldn't snap down in the place where it's supposed to be. So I messed around a little bit and then pulled it back out, and the wallet was sitting on a little ledge. Got on Facebook and started scrolling through Facebook to try to find the owner to see if I can find it. And lo and behold, I found Richard.
He said, "Did you lose your wallet years ago? If so, I found it in an engine bay of a car." I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Well, it's in Minnesota." I said, "You got to be kidding me." I said, "Would you be willing to send that to me? I'd get a kick out of that."
So I went down to the Postal Service and I sent it back to him, and it took like 2 or 3 days, and we got it back, and he was excited.
It restores your faith in humanity, that people will say, "Hey, you lost this, I found this, I'm gonna get it back to you." Think how hot that transmission got with that wallet. It should have fried it, but it spent 11 years riding around in that car.
Unbelievable. The vehicle being repaired had 243,000 kilometers on it. The wallet still had all of its original content, $15 in cash, a driver's license, work ID, some lottery tickets, and gift cards worth $275. $275. I mean, that's a lot of money. Wow. That is a lot of items. He's lucky he got that back. So here in southern Alberta, we're on our way to a lovely weekend and a warm whoop-up days. Next week, I'll be right back with your full forecast. On our way to a nice warm weekend, although we could still see some showers on Saturday afternoon and a risk of a thunderstorm as well, but otherwise warm temperatures and on our way to a very warm whoop-up week and whoop-up parade. So 27 through the weekend there. 25 was our high today, 27 Saturday and Sunday, and then Monday 28 for whoop-up days parade on Tuesday. We are reaching that high of 30 degrees to kick off our annual festival there. 29 on Wednesday and then high of 24 degrees on Thursday. So should be a lovely week ahead of us. So average high for this time of year, 26 degrees, average low 10 degrees, 35. That was Lethbridge's record high on this day, happening back in 2023, only a couple of years ago, really. 1908 is when Lethbridge saw its coldest on record, which was only 3 degrees. Sun rose this morning at 6:22, sunset this evening at 8:49 p.m., giving us 14 hours and 27 minutes of daylight, 4 minutes shorter of daylight than we saw yesterday. Okay, on the west coast tomorrow, 30% chance of showers in Victoria, high of 20 degrees. Vancouver, after a really heavy rainy day today, another 40% chance of showers tomorrow, high 19 degrees. Both Edmonton and Calgary seeing 30% chance of showers, risk of afternoon thunderstorms, 22 for the high in Edmonton and 24 in Calgary. Both of those cities also seeing 20 to 40 kilometer per hour winds. Clearing near noon in Saskatoon tomorrow, high of 24 there. 24 also the expected high in Regina with mainly sunny skies but windy, up to 40 to 60 kilometer per hour wind gusts. And 23 degrees rather in Winnipeg, and they are going to see those skies clearing up in the morning. Looking to the central part of the country, we're seeing mainly sunny skies all across that region with highs of 32 in Toronto, 33 in Ottawa, and high of 31 degrees in Montreal. So nice and warm. Looking to Atlantic Canada, we're also seeing mainly sunny skies with some fog patches developing overnight. Those should be dissipating in the mornings in all of these cities here. So Fredericton coming in at 29, 26 for Halifax, high of 25 degrees in Charlottetown, and 15 degrees in St. John's with fog. Could see 60% chance of drizzle and also an air quality warning due to that wildfire smoke. So there you have it. That is your forecast. Canadian manufacturing sales were up in June after a fourth straight months of decline. Stats Canada is reporting a 0.3% increase in manufacturing sales for the month to $68.5 billion. The agency says gains in the petroleum and coal and food products subsectors offset weaknesses in auto manufacturing. Petroleum and coal sales were up 11.8% in June to $6.8 billion, while the food subsector gained 2.5% to reach a record $12.5 billion. The Bank of Canada says Canadians are holding more cash in their wallets in a world that's going increasingly digital. The central bank says its 2024 survey on payment methods show Canadians kept an average of $156 cash in their wallets last year, $16 more than in 2023. The survey also found customers are using ATMs and bank branches more often and also taking out more cash with each withdrawal. The survey done in partnership with Ipsos found also that mobile payments are gaining traction, accounting for almost 5% of purchases in 2024. So interesting. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 10.50 on the day to finish at 27,905. The Dow was up 34.86 to 44,946. The S&P 500 was down 18 to 6,449, and the Nasdaq was down 87 points to 21,622. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 82 cents to 63.13 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 8 cents to 2.92 US. Gold was down 6 cents to 33.35.62 US an ounce. and silver was down a cent to $37.99 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.32 per bushel, barley is at $5.92, canola is at $14.94, and corn is at $7.14 per bushel. Live cattle were up $2.90 to $236.25. Feeder cattle were up $5.75 to $346.15, and lean hogs October contract was up 97 cents to $90.10 US. And the Canadian dollar was unchanged over the past 24 hours and currently sits at $72.40 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Air Canada and its flight attendants are taking their labor dispute down to the wire. About 10,000 flight attendants will be in a legal position at 1 a.m. Eastern Time Saturday morning. To strike, that is. Air Canada has already canceled about 500 flights and businesses are concerned. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says 1/3 of Canadian small businesses depend on the summer tourism season for their revenues, and most cannot afford to lose a single day. U.S. President Donald Trump is not only dealing with international conflicts, but within his own country, crime is on the rise. So he's deployed federal forces to help police in cities like Washington, D.C. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, will discuss this and other hot button issues coming up next. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or our YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and our interviews. U.S. President Donald Trump is scheduled to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday, but he's unsure if an immediate ceasefire can be achieved. Here to dive into this and more is Lisa Daftari, editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk, who joins us now from Los Angeles. Lisa, welcome back. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Jeanette.
Okay, so Lisa, this big talked about meeting between Putin and Trump happening. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Putin is bluffing about the whole thing. So Lisa, what are you hearing?
Well, that could very much be true. The Trump team is pretty optimistic, and they've always been optimistic. That's their MO, right? So to go into this and say, you know what, the time has come. We're going to be extremely forthright with Putin. He cannot play out the clock anymore as he has for the last over 7 months or so since the Trump administration has been in office. They came in with the campaign that they would stop this war as soon as possible. This is one of the senseless wars that they mentioned they would stop. There has to be an off-ramp for the madman Putin, and then that's the point. He is a madman. So the moment has arrived. They will sit down together, and there will be many, many demands that President Trump makes and says, you know what? Enough is enough. What will it take for you to end this war? And then make certain demands of him because there will be consequences. So really using all the political warfare tools, all the levers possible to say, you had some sanctions, you had unilateral sanctions, and you had unilateral and multilateral sanctions. But here is the United States. We're going to put more sanctions, biting sanctions on Russia, and you will suffer the consequences if you do not end this war. So I think both sides could be right. Zelensky could be right that Putin is bluffing, that he's not going to come to the table and he won't end this. He'll give the Trump administration a runaround. But I also think that the Trump administration will come into this with a very strong vantage point to say, we're in charge here, and if you don't end this war, this is what will happen. So, all eyes on Alaska. We will see what happens as this conversation takes place, and we will see if we'll see an end to this very, very senseless and tragic war very soon.
Gosh, I hope so. And now President Trump said Thursday that he believes that Russian President Putin will make a deal about his war on Ukraine. So, Lisa, do you think the threat of sanctions against Russia was what likely played a role in Moscow's decision to seek that meeting?
Putin will pretend as though the sanctions have not hurt him, but obviously we've been watching this play out, right? Look at how many casualties Russia has had. They never thought that this would last as long as it has. It wouldn't have cost them as much as it has in terms of both, treasure and, in terms of carrying out the war and resources. So back home, so many companies obviously pulling out of Russia, closing up, the Russian people suffering day to day, and still the war carries on. So yes, the sanctions, I guess in a word, yes, the sanctions are working, but then again, you're dealing with a madman who has his eyes on the prize. And then the question is, what is the prize? What is he looking for in this war? Well, in Putin land, the definition of power is through acres and acres of land. So the larger the Russian empire can be, the more powerful he at the helm will appear. That is exactly what he is trying to do. He is trying to annex as much of Ukraine as he possibly can, and that will potentially be what the compromise is in the end. I think Trump will come in there and say, you know what, Zelensky, this is a lost cause in these areas, and to Putin, you can't have all of it, but we'll give you this and this, and then see if that will temper the situation. But in the meantime, yes, the tool of economic punitive measures in the form of sanctions in this case, and other boycotts and just divesting and isolating Russia from the international global economy, I think has been extremely effective. And of course, they have turned to unlikely partners like Iran and China and others. But I think this is a conversation that Putin will have to take seriously.
Mm-hmm. And Lisa, I understand some are wondering if this could be the next Reagan-Gorbachev moment. So, Lisa, could there be a compelling comparisons, I guess, between Trump's peace through strength approach to Putin and Ronald Reagan's approach to Gorbachev?
A lot of comparisons have been drawn between Reagan and Trump throughout time, right? You have two very outside of the box presidents who came from non-political backgrounds, that both came from Hollywood type backgrounds, but who made very, very unique and significant contributions to the political landscape. And in this case, with Reagan, we never thought that he would be able to carry out what he did. And now we think perhaps Trump will do the same. In his first term, you look at the foreign policy that Trump carried out, a lot of it outside the box, innovative, things that you never thought he would be able to carry out. The Abraham Accords come to mind, for example. And now with this war as well, with the Gaza-Israel crisis as well, we hope that he will come up with and carry out ways to de-escalate these conflicts in a way that is Reagan-esque. Let's hope that is the energy he goes into this with.
Yeah, bring down that wall. Yeah, for
right.
Sure. Back on U.S. soil. Okay, so the Trump administration is declaring the District of Columbia a crime emergency and deployed the federal forces to its streets. So Washington, D.C.'s homicide rate is 27.5 out of 100,000 residents. That seems high, Lisa.
Absolutely. And you know what? Sitting here from Los Angeles, watching what he's attempting to do in Washington, D.C., we're saying, please, us next. We hope that this carries out and he goes to places like Chicago and San Francisco and Los Angeles, and he continues really bringing down the crime rate. To watch anyone be against this, it just really underscores the Trump derangement syndrome more and more. I mean, who would be against this and who would deny the crime rates? And Jeanette, if you've been following this story, it turns out that the law enforcement apparatus in Washington, D.C. has been watering down the crime stats. So imagine they're worse than what we actually believe that they are, and they're pretty bad, right? So again, the fact that he has eyes on both domestic and international crises. Crime in our cities has gone rampant. Here in Los Angeles, you cannot wear jewelry. You do not take your handbags out to lunch in the nicest of places. There, robberies, burglaries, theft, shootings, stabbings. A lot of it. It's just, it's everywhere. And people want to feel safe. I mean, look, these are American cities. We pay taxes. We want to feel safe. We want to let our children be out on the streets. We don't want to worry about things. And I think that Trump has a very good approach to this. And again, I hope that he's able to not just be successful in DC, but to replicate exactly what he's doing in DC throughout the country.
Yeah, and you were saying Austin X in Los Angeles. I understand he does have other sort of blue cities in his crosshairs. What's happening with that? What cities is he actually targeting? Certain cities, or sort of mentioning?
Los Angeles is something he always talks about, and what's unfortunate about this is you just said blue cities. Yes, the crime is rampant in blue cities. Again, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles come to mind, and obviously starting out with DC, his own neighborhood. New York City, horrific. And yes, they are blue cities, but can we just really put politics aside and say there are major crime issues in these cities, and we want to fix them? So
people really what it's about. Yes.
Yeah, with Trump having a fixation on blue cities, he's picking on them. No, he's trying to bring safety to these cities. So. It's unfortunate the media does such a disservice to a lot of these proposals that attempt to bring, again, safety and security to all, regardless of who they voted for. And it's really missed. And the headlines are misleading, as you know, Jeanette, being a journalist yourself. It's just not ethical the way that things are reported very often. And oftentimes people just read the headlines. They're not delving into the third paragraph of an article to find out what's going on. So I do hope that going forward we have a bit more integrity from the journalism, just the institution of media here in this country as well.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit here. So as we know, the U.S. tightened its mainland borders with Mexico, Canada as well. But now the crisis is beginning to shift to the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico, which began to deal with illegal immigrants and drug smuggling. So Lisa, what's being done to combat this?
It's crazy how, the numbers have gone down. Absolutely. So we have, staggering millions and millions have either been deported or have been deterred from coming into the country from our southern border. Obviously, a lot of those being very bad actors, which the Trump administration has set out to not let in. Many of those being drug smugglers. As we know, a lot of the fentanyl coming over the border, other lethal drugs coming through the border and going into our suburbs and killing very young or, individuals who are just experimenting for the first, second, third time and losing their lives. And that is, again, something else that they wanted to stop. Now, you probably deter a lot of the good people from coming into the country, but the drug dealers will find another way. And where have they found? They have found the island of Puerto Rico. They are going there. And what we are being told by the Trump administration is that the big, beautiful bill has allocated more funds and resources to stopping this crisis. Jeanette, I don't know if you've seen the ICE website is hiring, and they're offering very generous compensation for work, very generous bonuses. So yes, they are beefing up the entire apparatus. They are paying more. They want to get professionals on the job, and they really want to solve this issue. This is something that the detractors said that could not be done. And again, it's not a left or right issue. This is something that is regarding our national security. This is what brings a lot of crime, a lot of the raping, a lot of the abductions, a lot of the murders that are happening in our suburbs. Again, the overdosing, fentanyl, all of that coming into our cities. We need to stop that. Left, right, center. We need to stop that. So if the Trump administration or any administration is really allocating funding to stopping that, then all hands on deck and Godspeed. So we hope that this does work, and we hope that now we can focus on other ways that these criminals are getting drugs and other nefarious actors into the country, and again into Canada, because we know that once they come to the United States, many times that is not their final stop. They continue north, and that affects you guys in Canada as well.
So turning our attention back to Canada, so Israel's minister for combating anti-Semitism has unleashed some strong criticism of Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney following an attack on a Jewish man last week in Montreal. So what is his concern with Canadian Prime Minister?
Yeah, there's been many, well, as we know, let's start with global anti-Semitism. We know that hate crimes are on the rise, and a large percentage, in many cases, 90% and more of the hate crimes are targeted against the Jewish people, especially in the aftermath of October 7th. It's almost been a free-for-all against the Jewish people, which would not be accepted against any other group and would be stopped against any other group. And when we look at Europe, we look at, you know, the cautionary tale that could happen to us here in the West, where there are attacks on synagogues frequently. Jewish tourists are being beat up on the streets. We're seeing attacks and protests that are very violent. Jewish businesses being really vandalized, broken into, burned down, etc. Because of that, then we look at what's happening in Canada in places mostly like Montreal, Toronto. We're seeing a lot of hate crimes against Jewish students, against synagogues, against individuals who appear to be Jewish in places of, again, worship, school, tourists, etc. The protests that are going on, again, very violent. And it's not about Israel. It's not about policy. It's purely against Jewish people. For that reason, Israel and its leadership is offering this warning to Canada to say, you don't want to be what Europe has become. You need to stop this now before radicalism becomes a bigger problem for your country. And again, what starts with the Jews doesn't end with the Jews. It's radicalism. And once it starts taking over our countries, whether it's Canada, the United States, it's going to be too late. So we need to wake up to stopping any form of hate. But in this case, anti-Semitism being on the rise. And if we can do something about it, we must.
Editor-in-Chief of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jeanette.
Well, traveling to different parts of the world to see what different cities have to offer is so much fun and exciting. But of course, this year, with all the controversy over tariffs, more and more Canadians are staying here in Canada for their vacations. So today, we want to brag a little bit about what Lethbridge in southern Alberta has to offer. So joining me today to chat about this is Erin Crane. She is the CEO of Tourism Lethbridge. She joins me right now in studio. Erin, great to have you with us today. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
Yeah, and so
and
good
thrilled
to
be
have
in
you.
the studio.
Yeah, so good to have you in studio. It's usually over Zoom, but gone are the days of COVID, so we won't talk about that.
We love it.
Yeah. So, Erin, what are you doing this year in the tourism department? So, Lethbridge Tourism, obviously. So, are we seeing more people visiting Lethbridge and the surrounding area?
You know, this is a unique year for travel around the world. And yes, Lethbridge is seeing some increased traffic so far this year. We just have done a preliminary look at that January to June, so the first 6 months of the year, to figure out, you know, what's going on and if we need to change tactics in any ways. But what we know is that we are anticipating a really good year. And last year in Lethbridge, we did see a 5% increase in our visitor spending. And that's one of the big key performance indicators that we always, you know, look at. And, you know, we're hoping to match that or maybe even increase it for this year.
Yeah. How much of an impact does tourism have on our local economy?
It's interesting because tourism actually has a huge impact on the national economy and a really big impact on our provincial economy. Sure. Here in Lethbridge, we're still at that, you know, emerging market. Lethbridge has a lot of opportunity, and that's one of the things that Tourism Lethbridge always focuses on is how do we capture more of that market share that some of our other destinations in Alberta are seeing. Right. We have so much to offer here in Lethbridge and the surrounding area.
True.
And that's our job, is we want to capture it and tell the world all about it and get more people coming.
Yeah, exactly. I think when a lot of people think of Lethbridge, they think of the bridge, that train bridge, so the high-level bridge. But what attracts people to Lethbridge specifically?
Well, you know, we always talk about being a UNESCO World Heritage
Yes, we
Hub,
have some really
right?
close to us.
Yes. Well, there are 6 UNESCO World Heritage sites in Alberta.
Yes.
And 4 of them are within just a short drive from Lethbridge.
Yeah, wonderful.
So when we go out and we talk about Lethbridge to opportunities and new clients, you know, that's what we're always talking about, is that you can use Lethbridge as the hub and then do little day trips, you know, but you're hotels, your accommodations, your restaurants, your entertainment, your retailers. You know, we have some fantastic attractions here locally, right? You know, that really round out that visit, and that's a huge opportunity for Lethbridge. And you know, again, we need to keep telling that message to all of the target markets that we have for tourism.
I always think that Lethbridge is a great spot. We're only an hour from the border. We're just maybe an hour, 15 minutes from the mountains, from Waterton National Park, which is fantastic. And then that leads into Glacier National Park in Montana, very close. So what are the UNESCO heritage sites that are the closest to us? We got Writing on Stone, right?
Well, first and foremost is Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump, right? It's only 30 minutes away in Fort McLeod, you know, a great little, you know, day trip. But, you know, just what a spectacular way to really, you know, set the purpose for our region here and really, you know, dive into the indigenous culture that really, you know, again, is a big opportunity, especially for a lot of those international travelers.
Right.
Then Waterton, of course, the International Peace Park, that's a huge draw. Writing on Stone, which is one of our newest, and again, something that's really unique, right? That you can do mountains, you can do indigenous, and you can do badlands, right? All in one.
Yes, love those hoodoos.
Exactly, and that, of course, then ties into Dinosaur Provincial Park, which really is the start of that dinosaur trail moving up into the province, and you know, kind of starts that storyline. So for families and kids that are interested in, you know, hunting dinosaurs, you know, that's a great place to go.
Yeah, no, it really is. Lethbridge itself, too, I remember us talking before, and I think you said we have hundreds of kilometers of trails in the coulees alone, without leaving the city limits. Talk about that a little bit.
Oh my gosh, the natural side of Lethbridge, I think, is a real draw for, you know, people. And we know, too, for us, that some of those, you know, cultural explorers and the people who are looking for adventure in their travels, right? Those are really the market segments that, you know, look to Lethbridge for a holiday, right? Because they want to get out on the trails. They want to enjoy the sunshine and, you know, be outdoors and learn about the culture and, you know, our mining background and, you know, all of the things that make Lethbridge so special, right?
The coulees are really cool. I think you can go geocaching also in the coulees, can't you?
Oh my gosh, yes. It is huge, geocaching, right?
You mentioned indigenous earlier with reference to Head Smash and Buffalo Jump, also Writing on Stone. Fort Whoop-Up, also in the coulees, is a huge draw, particularly for, I think we've heard that German tourists really like to take that in, and other Europeans. What are you finding? Where are most of Lethbridge's tourists coming from?
Right now, they really are coming from within Alberta. And, you know, this was great for us, you know, especially during COVID. Those Albertan travelers really kept our tourism industry alive, right? You know, it was a tough time, right? Tourism was the hardest hit, the first hit, and, you know, we are still we're past recovering, but I think there will always be that recovery. You know, so Albertan travelers, definitely. We have seen a lot of increase, though, coming from other provinces around Canada, which is great. You know, we've done a lot of work on getting the word out about Lethbridge on a national scale. And we've really started some work on that international, which again is a huge opportunity for us. And that's where we see that increase in visitor spending. Because those travelers who come from abroad, again, the European market is huge. The Asian market for us is really big. So those travelers coming in tend to spend a lot more money than just, you know, someone traveling from within Alberta. Right?
Naturally.
So it really does help with the economic growth that we see from tourism when we can make those gains in those other market segments.
Yeah, that's really neat. Is there a connection between tourism and, out of that, a business maybe finding out about the community and then setting up location here?
Oh, definitely, right? We always talk about tourism as being the first date of economic development, right?
Yes.
We bring people in, they get to learn about us, and this is where they start to maybe see themselves here. You know, maybe it's sending their kids to one of our amazing post-secondary education institutions, right? Maybe it's starting a business, buying a house, you know, working in one of our existing, you know, businesses, right? You know, that when you come and you learn about a place, this is the exciting thing, and it really starts the conversation.
Right. And then, you know, of course, we have events and festivals, and one of our biggest one really is right at our doorstep soon. So Whoop Up Days starting. So is there anything new this year that you can tell us about?
Oh gosh, I know the exhibition team has a lot of new things planned, and I encourage everyone to go and check out their website. You know, one of the things that always excites me about Whoop Up Days is the food.
Oh, me too.
And I know, you know, they just sent out a press release the other day about, you know, again, working with one of our local businesses, LA Chefs. And, you know, that they've got some new things planned. And, you know, I think this is another really neat opportunity for our region, is that they're really diving into that, you know, locally produced. And this is a huge thing for Lethbridge, is agriculture and being Canada's premier food corridor, right? We have so much here, and when businesses and organizations can embrace it and, you know, really dive into that, you know, it's a great thing to see, and we're really excited about.
It's always an exciting time of year. I got to be at that scrum, so I got to taste some of the new foods.
Oh, you did. Lucky.
I know, exactly. With that in mind, are there any other events or entertainers coming to town that could draw in people from other cities, provinces?
Our community does such a great job about, you know, really activating, you know, all of the events, right? Whoop Up Days being one of them, but we also have Thunder in the Bridge coming up at the visitlethbridge.com arena in September, and there's some major acts coming into that. And, you know, all of the events that happen in our community are put on, many of the events that happen are put on by local volunteers. And, you know, it's great when the community can step up and, you know, say, you know, this is what we want to happen in our community. And, you know, it's really nice to see, and, you know, let them drive it. So.
What about events like a Street Wheelers Weekend, Street Machine, Dragon Boat Festival? What kind of a draw or an impact on the local economy does that have?
It's huge, actually. You know, and we always talk about this too, not only for events and both business events and, again, the cultural and community events like Street Wheelers. But if you look at something like sport tourism, right? You know, we know that, you know, when we host things like the Tim Hortons Briar and the Scotties and, you know, all of those big events, that brings in a huge economic value, right? But the work that we've done with our partners over at Lethbridge Sport Council, you know, tells us that it's those regular day-to-day, week-to-week events, you know, the hockey tournaments, the ringette tournaments, the, you know, ball tournaments that, you know, happen, that, you know, all of that work contributes multi-million dollars into our economy.
There's a huge sports community here in town.
It's
gigantic,
massive, right? And so, again, the big events are great, but it's also those, you know, regular events that, you know, our community puts on that really help us thrive and help the businesses thrive.
Yeah, exactly. What kind of feedback are you getting from tourists? What are people saying about Lethbridge?
Gosh. You know, Lethbridge and, again, Southern Alberta as a whole really is emerging, right? What people are looking for, new destinations outside of those large city centers. And that's what we hear about Lethbridge is, wow, we had no idea everything that exists here and all that there is to see and do, right? So it's always that surprise that it is such an amazing tourism destination. And, how can they, tell others all about it? So.
Yeah, exactly. Lethbridge doesn't have a zoo the way that some cities and towns do, but we have the Alberta Birds of Prey that is 10 minutes away in Coaldale, and that can be a huge draw. I love it there.
Oh gosh, me too.
Yeah.
And again, when we think about, all of the things that differentiate us from other places, like you mentioned, many people have a zoo, but not many people have a Birds of Prey center that is not only allowing that interaction between visitors and the birds of prey, but it's also about rehabilitation, and this is sustainability, which is a huge part of the ongoing tourism conversation, and how your community is embracing that and looking at all of those sustainability things.
No, it's neat.
We love having the birds of prey.
Oh, I know. Where else can you go and get an eagle to land on your arm?
Exactly, right? And pet an owl.
I know.
Like,
yeah, they're
amazing.
gorgeous. Unfortunately, we're out of time here, but Erin, thanks so much for being with us today in studio.
I know. Thank you, Jeanette. Great to be here.
You're welcome. Erin Crane is the CEO of Tourism Lethbridge. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.